You know, one other issue which your company, your agency was mentioned has to do with two other companies or two names. I'm quite sure you're familiar with Seawolves and Geometrics. They say even performing loans are also being acquired rather than toxic loans as required by law, particularly in transactions pertaining to Seawolves, Geometrics, and methods of acquisition of performing and non-performing loans.
Yes, they asked me this question and I explained it. The AMCON Act says, and I doubt that they read the AMCON Act. I really doubt it, because it says that for AMCON to acquire any asset, CBN must designate that asset as eligible. CBN must designate the institution from which AMCON acquires it as an eligible institution. And then CBN must tell us, determine the price at which you acquire those things. Those are three necessary components. So before AMCON acquires anything at all, it has to have CBN agree that it's eligible, and it's from an eligible institution, and the pricing. In the case of this, there's actually three loans: Geometric, Seawolf, and Xenon. These were large loans that represented a systemic risk to the banking system in the fact that if any of those loans had defaulted, there would have been another problem in the banking system. And CBN and us spent 6 months, and the method of purchasing it was by simply valuing the collateral. The collateral was valued by AMCON, by the bank, and by CBN examiners independently to come up with the valuation of those loans. And the reason they were acquired was because they represented a systemic, this was a 6-month process. In fact, we looked at every bank and we checked every loan that after we claim the banking system has been cleaned up, if one of these loans defaults, then it puts a lie to everything that was done before. And so we removed those loans from the banking system because it was a systemic risk. And
but they were performing as at that time.
They were performing as at that time. And the law allows you to buy any asset that CBN designates as eligible. That's what the law says. And so everything was done according to the law. And that's why I wonder whether or not they read the AMCON Act. I mean, there's a claim here that the AMCON Act, Section 10, in the report, prohibits a regulator, in this case, Ms. Arumote, from being on the AMCON board. First of all, Ms. Arumote and SEC are not regulators of AMCON. AMCON only has one regulator, CBN, by law. Also, the Section 10 he quotes never says any such thing. All it says is that the AMCON directors should be nominated, recommended to the president by Ministry of Finance and CBN. It doesn't say anything about regulators. It doesn't say anything about who should be on the board except they be nominated by CBN and Ministry of Finance and the qualifications. Yet, in a report by the National Assembly, he quotes Section 10 of the AMCON Act and puts it in a report that our National Assembly shows to the world without even reading the Section 10 of the AMCON Act. It's baffling.
Okay, now let's go to number 2 of the recommendations. There's this controversy over missing 8 billion naira of a Union Bank public offer. What does AMCON know about that?
Well, you see, I brought all these documents because if they had looked at these documents for 5 minutes, they wouldn't have put that report there.
Did you give them those documents?
They didn't ask me. I also have the list of the information they asked me to provide. This is their letter. These are all the things they wanted. I read one of them just for humor. Number 4, does the term bubble capital ring a bell to CBN? If yes, what is it? Did CBN in all its post-audit inspections discover any issue of bubble capital? This is addressed to AMCON. What does AMCON have to do with bubble capital and CBN?
Now, we understand, because we put
these are the questions.
We put that question to the chairman of the panel, who said that there were some mistakes in the initial letters sent out.
Yes.
That even they had to summon the secretariat for those mistakes.
Yes.
And that other letters were sent out much later, specific to the agencies they wanted them to go to, but that they did not get any response from AMCON. Did you get any other letter aside this?
I would challenge El-Sudi's panel to show me any acknowledged copy of any letter sent to AMCON apart from this letter. Never happened.
Because here you are being cited for contempt.
Yes.
Of the panel.
This is the letter.
For not providing documents
and this is
that they required.
This is the response to the letter. This is the only letter we received from the panel. So again, it just is baffling that people say things that are not even close to truth. In fact, this is the only letter we got. Now, please going back to Union Bank, because it's a very simple matter, and it seems to be exciting people. In 2005, Union Bank had a rights issue. They applied for a rights issue in order to acquire and capitalize a subsidiary in London, Union Bank London. That was the purpose. Because it was taking so long for the issue to come to the market, they used working capital improperly to fund the acquisition of this branch in London. When the funds came through, they then used the funds to replace the working capital that they had used previously. That's a violation of SEC rules. SEC investigated the matter, fined Union Bank a sum of 10.3 million naira, and told Union Bank, when we were capitalizing, AMCON was capitalizing Union Bank, to inform AMCON of that offense. So Union Bank wrote AMCON and said, this is what happened. Our position is that we are going to capitalize this bank to zero according to our requirements, our rules. Whatever costs the bank to be negative capital is really not AMCON's business. It's the business of the law enforcement agencies, it's the business of the regulators. But our mandate is to capitalize these banks to zero to enable the takeover of the bank.
Does AMCON make recommendations? I mean, if they see that a bank has been run aground or has been run into negative because of the bank's own mistakes, possibly due to some fraudulent practices taking place in the bank, after AMCON has recapitalized the bank, is it also one of AMCON's responsibility to let, say, the regulatory authorities know what's going on there, or sometimes tell security agencies that we think that maybe this should be investigated as well?
Yeah, it is not just AMCON's responsibility to do that. It is everybody's responsibility to do that. So we will do that when we see that. In this case, this occurred in 2005 to 2007. The management at that time that caused this infraction was not mentioned in their report. The people that came in and cleaned up this mess and paid the fine are the ones that are cited. Isn't it curious to you that the SEC DG at the time, when this happened, was not mentioned? The management at the time, when this infraction, a real infraction happened, was not mentioned. The people who inherited the problem and tried to fix it and recapitalize this bank are the ones who are the ones cited. Let me say this, no money was missing. The money was traced. It was used to acquire Union Bank London. It was not stolen. And the infraction was misuse of the proceeds for another purpose than it was designed. That was infraction, and they were fined.
Are you alleging witch hunting?
I have too much respect for the National Assembly to say that. But I will say this report is extremely ill done, extremely sloppy, and for example, he says that AMCON is a time bomb waiting to happen. This he concludes after a 1-hour interaction with AMCON MD. We've had visits from the IMF to look into the AMCON model. I spent 8 hours with them in Abuja, and I've been on the phone. I was on the phone with them for an additional 8 hours when they went back to Washington, asking me questions, details about what we're doing. And in their report about Nigeria, they cited AMCON as one of the good things Nigeria has done. The same thing happened with the Standard & Poor's rating agency, happened with Moody's, happened with Fitch. We spent 10 to 16 hours with these people. How El-Sudi and his panel can make decisions at this time in the world where there's capital flight.